Joseph Joestar is one of the most fascinating protagonists in JoJo's bizarre adventure because he's almost the opposite of what a heroic bloodline successor is supposed to be. Jonathan Joestar is noble, honorable, disciplined, and almost mythically pure. Joseph is loud, rude, impulsive, theatrical, dishonest when necessary, and constantly looks like he's 2 seconds away from either saving the world or making the situation significantly worse. He's the protagonist of Battle Tendency, the grandson of Jonathan Joestar, and one of the most important returning figures in Stardust Crusaders, where he later uses the stand Hermit Purple. But that contrast is exactly why Joseph works. He's not a less honorable Joestar, he's a different kind of goodness. Jonathan represents moral purity, Joseph represents survival morality. Jonathan fights evil by standing against it with righteous conviction, Joseph fights evil by lying to it, annoying it, baiting it, humiliating it, and forcing it to make emotional mistakes. He's not the cleanest JoJo, but he may be the most human. Joseph's greatest ability is not Hamon, it's not Hermit Purple, it's not even his famous ability to predict what someone is about to say. His greatest ability is strategic disrespect. Joseph understands that powerful enemies often want to be taken seriously. They want fear, reverence, intimidation, and control. Joseph denies them all of it. He turns fights into arguments, rituals into jokes, and godlike villains into frustrated idiots. That's why he's so effective against beings like the Pillarmen. He can't overpower them directly, so he attacks the rhythm, ego, and assumptions. This is what makes Joseph so different from a standard battle shonen protagonist. Most heroes win by believing harder, training harder, or unlocking a purer form of strength. Joseph wins by making the enemy misread the genre they are in. The Pillarmen believe they are ancient superior beings standing above humanity. Joseph's entire existence is an insult to that idea. He survives because he is messy, adaptive, unpredictable, and willing to do things a perfect warrior would consider beneath them. Philosophically, Joseph is a trickster hero. In mythology, tricksters are figures who survive through wit rather than status. They break rules, expose pride, and reveal that intelligence can be more powerful than strength. Joseph fits that archetype perfectly. He's not anti-moral per se, he's almost anti-ceremonial. He does not care if victory looks honorable, he cares if people survive. That's a very different kind of heroism from Jonathan's, but it's still not lesser. His personality is built on contradiction. Joseph is childish, cocky, quick-tempered, and often disrespectful towards authority. But he is also deeply loyal, emotionally intelligent, and far more perceptive than he pretends. That contradiction is the point. Joseph acts unserious because unseriousness is one of his weapons. If people think he's a clown, they just underestimate him. If they think he's panicking, they overextend. If they think he's running away, they forget that Joseph's secret technique is often a strategic retreat used to reposition, stall, or prepare a trap. Even his cowardice is frequently tactical. Joseph is not brave because he never runs, he's brave because he is willing to look cowardly if it increases his chances of winning. That may be Joseph's most underrated philosophical lesson. Ego is expensive. A lot of warriors die because they would rather look strong than survive. Joseph is almost shameless in the best way possible. He will cheat, flee, bluff, cross-dress, scream, taunt, and improvise if that is what the situation requires. Underneath all that comedy is a brutally practical survival ethic. Winning is not about preserving your image, winning is about preserving life. His Hamon use reflects this perfectly. Hamon, or ripple, is generated through controlled breathing and produces energy comparable to sunlight, making it especially effective against vampires, zombies, and the Pillarmen. Jonathan uses Hamon like a disciplined martial artist. Joseph uses Hamon like a con artist with superpowers. He conducts it through objects, tricks enemies into touching prepared surfaces, uses clackers, strings, oil, and environmental tools. He treats Hamon less like a sacred martial art and more like a physics exploit. That is genius. But Joseph could have used Hamon even more efficiently. His biggest tactical flaw in Battle Tendency is that he often relies on improvisation so heavily that he underprepares. He is brilliant under pressure, but he could have become terrifying if he built repeatable systems around his tricks. Hamon conducts through many materials, so Joseph could have carried specialized gear, conductive wires, hidden metal discs, weighted cords, oil capsules, mirrored surfaces, and traps designed to transmit ripple at a distance. A more optimized Joseph would fight like a battlefield magician. Every single object on him would have a purpose. Coins could become Hammon mines, threads could become trapwire conductors, smoke or dust could hide the placement of charged tools, water droplets could become detection systems or short-range transmission points. Since Joseph already thinks in misdirection, his ideal combat style should be less brawl until inspiration strikes and more build a stage where every prop can kill you. He also could have leaned harder into breathing disruption as a counter combat principle. Because Hammon requires controlled respiration, Joseph should be hyper aware of how breath affects rhythm, stamina, and panic. He could use taunts not just to irritate enemies, but to alter their breathing patterns. He could force opponents into anger, laughter, hesitation, or overexertion, then punish the moment the rhythm breaks. In other words, Joseph's mouth is part of his martial art. His trash talk is not just personality, it's tempo control. This is why his famous next you'll say habit matters. On the surface, it's a comedic flex, but psychologically, it's devastating. When Joseph predicts someone's words, he's proving that he has already entered their head. He's telling them, you are not as unpredictable as you think. In combat, that creates panic. Once an enemy believes Joseph can read them, they start second-guessing themselves. That hesitation gives Joseph exactly what he needs, an opening. Joseph's later stand, Hermit Purple, is also thematically perfect. Hermit Purple is a vine-like stand that can reveal distant images through spirit photography and can also function physically as thorny vines. Compared to Star Platinum, The World, or Crazy Diamond, Hermit Purple looks weak, but that is because people evaluate it like a punching stand instead of an intelligence stand. Hermit Purple is Joseph's personality made spiritual, indirect, tricky, connective, and information-based. If Joseph had used Hermit Purple more efficiently, he could have been the best support in Part 3. Its divination ability should have made him a constant reconnaissance engine. He could use cameras, maps, television sets, and possibly other media to track enemies, investigate stand users, and build pre-fight intelligence. In a world where stand abilities are often deadly because they are unknown, Hermit Purple's real value is reducing uncertainty. Joseph should not be treated as the weak link, he should be the group's intelligence officer. Hermit Purple also becomes much more dangerous when combined with Hammon. Joseph can conduct Hammon through Hermit Purple, which means the vines are not just restraints, they can become anti-vampire wiring. Against Dio, Joseph using Hammon charged Hermit Purple defensively makes perfect sense. But in a more optimized version, Joseph would create layered Hammon barriers around allies, hidden vine traps across walls, and defensive nets that punish any vampire or undead enemy that tries to close distance. He shouldn't be fighting like an old man trying to keep up with Jotaro. He should be fighting like an old strategist, turning every hallway into a trap. Joseph's design also ties into everything. Young Joseph's look is loud, stylish, muscular, and theatrical. His scarf, fitted outfit, wild hair, and exaggerated poses make him feel like a street performer mixed with a brawler. He does not look like a disciplined martial heir. He looks like chaos wearing heroic colors. That matches his role perfectly. Joseph is not the noble knight. He's the unpredictable performer who wins because nobody knows where the act ends and the trap begins. Old Joseph's design shifts dramatically. In Stardust Crusaders, his hat, beard, explorer-like clothing, and Hermit Purple vines make him look like an aging adventurer. He's no longer the flashy young trickster at the center of the story. He becomes the veteran guide, the bridge between Hammon era JoJo and Stand era JoJo. Visually, he carries the past into the future. His body is older, his Hammon is diminished, but his mind is still alive. The design says Joseph may no longer be the main character, but he's still the man who knows how bizarre the world can get. This aging is actually one of the most interesting things about him. Most shonen heroes stay frozen in their prime. Joseph is allowed to become older, messier, less dominant, and even embarrassing at times. That makes him feel real. He does not age like a perfect legend, he ages like a person, still clever, still funny, still flawed, but no longer invincible. His decline is not disrespectful, it's humanizing. That also connects to his ideals. Joseph is not obsessed with legacy in the traditional sense. He does not carry the Joestar name with solemn nobility like Jonathan might, but he protects that legacy through action. He fights for Arena, Speedwagon, Caesar, Lisa, Suzy Q, Holly, Jotaro, and eventually the future of the family. His love is not always elegant, but it is consistent. Joseph may joke constantly, but when the stakes become personal, he shows up. His relationship with Caesar is especially important. At first, Joseph and Caesar clash because both are proud, emotional, and immature in different ways. Caesar values tradition and inherited honor. Joseph values improvisation and survival. Their friendship forces Joseph to confront the emotional cost of his own unseriousness. Caesar's death hits so hard because Joseph loses someone who believed in legacy more openly than he did. After that, Joseph's victory over the Pillarmen is not just a clever survival story, it becomes an act of mourning. What if Joseph trained seriously from the beginning? He might have become one of the most terrifying Haman users in history. His natural talent, creativity, and battle IQ combined with disciplined training from Lisa could have made him far more technically dominant. But ironically, he might also have lost some of what makes him Joseph. His strength comes from being unorthodox. Too much discipline might have dulled the improvisational genius that allowed him to defeat enemies far stronger than himself. What if Joseph developed Hermit Purple in his youth? That version of Joseph would be absurdly dangerous. Young Joseph already had elite physical ability, Haman, trickery, and prediction. Add Hermit Purple scouting, restraining, and divination, and he becomes a nightmare matchup. He could set traps from range, conduct Haman through stand vines, spy on enemies, and turn every fight into a rigged puzzle. The Pillarmen would have had a much harder time against the Joseph who could gather intelligence before every encounter. What if Joseph had Jonathan's personality? He probably dies. That sounds harsh, but Joseph's enemies are too strange, ancient, and physically superior for pure honor to work. Jonathan's nobility is beautiful, but Joseph's era requires deception. This is one of Araki's smartest generational choices. Every JoJo is built for the type of evil they face. Jonathan fights gothic evil with purity, Joseph fights ancient predatory superiority with trickery. Jotaro fights hidden stand assassins with cold precision. Joseph survives because his personality is exactly the right kind of bizarre. In the end, Joseph Joestar is not great because he's the strongest JoJo, he's great because he proves intelligence can be heroic without being clean. He shows that courage does not always look dignified. Sometimes courage looks like running away while secretly planning for a comeback. Sometimes it looks like laughing in the face of a godlike enemy because fear would give them too much satisfaction. Joseph's greatest power is that he refuses to let evil control the tone of the room. The Pillarmen want awe, Joseph gives them irritation. Dio wants terror, Joseph gives them complications. Fate wants solemn tragedy, Joseph turns it into a magic trick. And that's why Joseph Joestar remains unforgettable. He's the JoJo who understood that if the universe is bizarre, then survival belongs to the person willing to be even more bizarre back. Thanks for watching the video. If you have any anime characters you'd like me to analyze, drop them down in the comments below. You already know. JV out!